And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation, but the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself.
That aged well.
Boy, that didn't age well, Eric. What the scumbag. Oh, my God. The chickens are coming home to roost.
No kidding. And you got to give it to Shapiro, though. Like, yep, I agree with me.
I agree with me. That's what I said. And I endorse this message from Ben Shapiro.
Oh, wow. My God. What a, I don't know. I guess it's unmitigated disaster. It might be mitigated. I don't know, but it appears that they were taking our former guest's work seriously. And
Joel Groubert, yeah.
It looks
absolutely.
Like Eric wasn't leaving the race, so they finally said, you know what? We're done with you.
Yeah. Well, I thought he would leave after but I think he perceived Groubert to be too small to take him down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He just said, I'm going to need bigger enemies than Joel Groubert, a Dylan cover band artist and documentarian. But then when Pelosi said it, that was the end of the line. In other words, they didn't do anything until Pelosi said that.
Right. Well, I think it's also that the Republicans are polling too well. And they're like, there's just too many Democrats. One of you've got to go. They had some reasons on him.
Yeah.
Nobody was leaving. They're like, okay, you know what? We'll help you out. Here, we'll make the decision for you.
Oh, Lisa Bloom is all over it this morning. Gloria Allred's evil daughter with one of the victims who her charges go back, of course, to 2018. But anybody could come with any charges at any time for anybody, anywhere, apparently. She could have gone to the police, this woman, in 2018, but she chose not to. And now that this guy is a wounded animal, bleeding, and they figure maybe he's got some money left.
Well, he definitely doesn't have a place to stay. And what was interesting is the one who leaked the tape with the sex worker was Pharma Bro himself. Remember?
Oh, I saw. Just so people who are listening at home, Eric is talking about Eric Swalwell, the congressman from Northern California. Yeah. People may not be able to see that, so just to go on. But go on, you're right. It was the Pharma Bro coming back.
And I think his name's Martin Shkreli, something like that.
Shkreli. Yeah, Shkreli.
And
he was railroaded anyway, Shkreli.
And I'm sure that he spent some time being grilled in front of Congress before he served time himself in prison. And I don't know, them chickens are really coming home to roost for Swalwell. I've not seen this kind of precipitous drop. What was it, day? I mean, it's like 5 days he went from ignoring, was it the 5 stages of grief?
Yeah,
five stages of
grief. Right. But then when you get to the weekend, I'm gonna talk to my wife part of these stories. That's when it ends on a Sunday night.
Well, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm leaving Congress too.
I'm leaving Congress too because they're going to vote me out, and I'm going to get the George Santos treatment, but nobody's going to pardon me. Now, no, he's still in criminal legal jeopardy, Eric.
Oh, sure he is. But to be fair, there was a Republican, what was it, Gonzalez, I think?
Yeah, Gonzalez in a trade.
Staff member self-emulated, equally scummy guy. I mean, you know,
both. No, I don't know if he's equal to Eric Swalwell, who's accused of graping and choking out and drugging. I don't think he was ever accused of that. I mean, one of his aides set themselves on fire, but that could happen.
Oh yeah, that just
I couldn't control that. Look, if she wants to go out in a ball of flames like Jerry Lee Lewis, goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
Well, it's astounding that it took this long. I mean, we're talking.
Oh, you're talking about for Swalwell?
Yeah, I mean, this is Fang boy. I mean, this has been...
Well, it's inexplicable how he wasn't charged with tipping off Fang when she fled back to China the next day. And the FBI said that he was the only one, unless they were in the Intelligence Committee, which he was at the time. So he knew about this, but I'm saying, it could have been somebody who endorsed him, like Adam Schiff, who tipped off Fang Fang. But all roads seem to have led to Swalwell himself tipping off his Chinese spy bedmate.
Oh, for sure. And this is what I was talking about too, about his place to stay. Billionaire details Eric Swalwell's final days hold up inside his $26 million mansion and brutal eviction.
Whoa.
And this guy is trying to get away from Swalwell so fast, he said he's leaving the entire Democratic Party. He is now a libertarian Republican. Now, to be fair, apparently he has his own issues with a former OnlyFans girlfriend and things like that. So he may be like, I'm taking a lot of heat already. And
what is he, a donor, a wealthy donor, Eric?
yeah, he's donated over $1 million.
He could have OnlyFans all day long. He's a donor. I mean, there's no ramifications. You can refuse to take his money, I guess, but that would be on the Dems who are, that idealistic, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, I guess he gave $1 million to Swalwell, and now he's
got buyer's remorse.
Very, very much.
Well, there was another Chinese communist spy story this week. I don't know if you covered it, but the Department of Justice put out a statement that these stories just drive me insane. This guy was a professor and a biological teacher. Here's the guy at Indiana University for the 10 millionth time. He was smuggling in bacteriological potential weapons, E. coli virus, E. coli bacteria, into Indiana from communist China under the guise of women's underwear to cover the packaging. He was arrested when he returned from the UK on some, biological seminar over there. And, he is caught red-handed. They pick him up. They say that you have ordered these biological E. coli viruses to be sent through the mail from China. Turns out he lied on his visa. He is a top member of, he is a top member of the Communist Party separately, not just a student, as are all of these people I've been railing about for close to 4 years now. So he gets arrested and he pleads out, and instead of being sentenced, he's, of course, simply sent back to China. And I just can't get my mind around the fact that there's no penalty for them. Why would the Chinese Communist Party ever stop this stuff with academia when they're simply returned to the Chinese Communist Party for smuggling in bacteriological weaponry? It's insane. I mean, the Department of Justice, when you read the article from the DOJ, I don't know if I have it here. Maybe there's something. Oh, okay. I just wanted to point this out. He was sentenced to more than 4 months in prison, a $500 fine, and 1 year of supervised release after pleading guilty to smuggling biological materials, Eric, into the United States from China. As part of Yang's plea agreement with the government, he stipulated to the entry of a judicial order of removal, which will result in his immediate removal from the United States to the People's Republic of China. Big fucking deal. Now the guy, he's a PhD from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Turns out he's a high-ranking member of the Communist Chinese Party, not some random academic. Mm-hmm. And he had the visa to perform his postdoctoral research in the Department of Biology at Indiana University in Bloomington. I mean, it just staggers the mind that these people are always being sent back to China.
I wonder if he made a deal, because they're
probably not make a deal. That's
what no, but there might be part of the deal. Like, did he reveal names of other people here or something like that, which they aren't going to necessarily publicize?
It's highly doubtful. This guy squawked and then go back to China after you squawked. This is kind of interesting. The Chinese Communist Party member exploited a federally funded research grant from USDA to smuggle dangerous biological material into the United States. The sender lied on the manifest to hide the dangerous nature of the shipment. USDA OIG actively combats the illegal import of biological materials, of course. The USDA inspector was General John Walk, but there is wording here from the Southern District of Indiana, a guy named Tom Wheeler, who was representing the DOJ, says, "Let me be clear: the customs laws and regulations in the United States exist to protect our borders. They may not be ignored, Eric, at the whim and folly of scientific researchers and academic institutions. Our office remains fully committed to working with our exceptional law enforcement partners to protect Hoosiers and defend the United States against such grave national security threats." I mean, it sounds like they're minimizing what this guy did. Was smuggling in fucking anthrax or E. coli vaccine.
Because it probably scare the shit out of people. And I'm sure they're like, we don't need to go into full details because everybody will be really frightened.
But I'm saying this has happened between you and me on this show about, I want to say 15 times we've covered the same story with the same result. Where they let them into the university. Why do we need this fucking guy from China to be inside of Indiana University? Why? It can't survive without some Chinese guy who needs to do his PhD there? It's ridiculous. Shut the door on these people, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of faculty and administration folks who seem to be directly working for the CCP.
Yeah.
All over the country.
Yep.
And that's important to see, though, because, we're thinking, okay, UCLA, USC, California schools.
No, it's everywhere.
No. That's middle America.
It's middle America. They have burrowed in and they burrow in and they're doing other things while they're burrowing in. I mean, this guy got caught because it was so freaking brazen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was he going to do? What are they leaving anthrax and bioweaponry in lockers somewhere for a future attack? You know what I'm saying, Eric? I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I mean, let's face it. This is our mortal enemy at this point.
Well, what I worry about too is, biological warfare or whatever is obviously a threat to everybody, including those who launch it. So, a scientist, you may want to find a way to make sure it only affects a certain race type or genome type or something like that.
That's right.
Would probably prevent the backlash or the reverse infection, and that is what I think is a big worry. Is like, is he testing somehow the effectiveness here? I don't know, but
it could be. I mean, they've already tested it. It was called COVID. I mean, so maybe they've got COVID too in mind. I don't know.
It could be, and of course, COVID was us too.
Yeah,
I mean, Fauci. While we have communists here, we have. Remember, you were talking about the big three cities, and if LA falls, it'll be so you got New York, you got Chicago.
Hat trick. It's a hat trick.
Well, New York, Mamdani is following the Chicago route right now, and he made a little announcement here.
We will use government to respond to rising prices and unaffordable groceries. Since the pandemic, grocery prices have gone up, and they haven't come back down. Between 2013 and 2023, grocery prices increased in New York City by nearly 66%.
So his answer to grocery prices rising is to have a government-owned grocery store.
I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it, because he is now selecting his cronies to run this place. So the cronies, he's going to build a Marxist Trader Joe's up in Harlem. I think up on 113th Street. I forget where exactly, but he's going to build this from scratch, physically build it, Eric. So that's $30 million in taxpayers' money to build it. The food is going to be half price for people to come in and get the food. However, the guy running it is going to be paid back full price. So there's no risk for the guy running it, the crony. He's going to get, in other words, he's going to buy a jar of mayonnaise for his store, right? He is going to pay $6 for that jar of mayonnaise. He's going to be paid $6 from the city out of all of the taxpayers' money, put it on sale in the store for $3.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is going to go to get the $3 mayonnaise. He's not at risk. He's getting all his money back from the city taxpayers, the schmucks who voted for this guy. Now, the people getting the food are going to be on federal assistance from the federal government with the food stamps to buy the food in a complete miniature socialist circle that Mamdani has now created regarding food.
and it's a way to do it. Now, I want to get a couple more political things in here.
Yeah.
In Florida, Randy Fine has been speaking up, and especially about the dogs and things like that. Well, they're running somebody against him.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, but his name is Dan Bilzerian. And this guy, all right, well, folks in the chat, just look up Dan Bilzerian on your own. And one of his buddies, Jake Shields, has put together a
Wait, is this in the
design.
same party, Eric, or a primary, or?
Yeah, they're trying to primary him.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, his buddy Jake Shields, you might have heard of him, MMA fighter, has no love of the Jews, shall we say, came up with a t-shirt design for his buddy Dan, who also hates them. And this is the t-shirt design of somebody who's running against Randy Fine for Congress. Anybody see any problem with that? That looks perfectly normal, right?
Yikes. Yeah, it's beyond anything now at this point. I mean, the IRS has to investigate this guy, and there has to be investigations into these Jew haters, make it uncomfortable for them at least.
Yeah. And I mean, I you know what? I appreciate that they don't hide the ball. Let me put it
this way. If he was strangling a fucking Negro, do you think this would last more than 5 fucking seconds?
Oh, no. Obviously not.
Thank you.
Or even a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, just a white female. No.
They're picking on a tiny fucking minority with a 300% increase in hate crimes that have led to the deaths, the highest level of deaths of Jews in the United States in over 30 fucking years. But it's fun and games because they don't like the politics of somebody called Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And
what about in California with the new Stop Nick Shirley Act that they are about to pass in the California legislature, Eric?
Well, doesn't that go with what you were talking about, the no two-way recording or whatever, double consent? I mean, it's just an extension of what they're already doing, right?
Yes, it's a good analogy but what's a better analogy is the Attorney General of California, this guy Bonta, came out saying he's been solving all of the fraud himself as Attorney General for many years. So a legislator had to create the Stop Nick Shirley Act because of the sensitivity and privacy of the people in the healthcare industry that Nick Shirley has been outing. Look at the writer of the bill who created the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Look at the name of the legislator. The name of the legislator is Mrs. Bonta. It's the Attorney General's wife, who was the Attorney General appointed by Newsom. This is his wife in the California legislature, waking up one day and saying to herself, I have to get to work today and create a bill called the Stop Nick Shirley Act as soon as fucking possible.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if you really wanted to find out all the scammers, I would suggest looking at who's donating money to Bonta.
Yeah.
Look at your donation roll, and that would narrow it down a lot. Cops always appreciate that.
Kind of interesting. Bonta went around shutting down Chinese card gambling places all last year. And they said to him, why are you just shutting down these legal small Chinese gambling parlors? And it was apparently he's in a financial relationship with the indigenous Native American gambling industry in California.
Okay, I thought that it was just a shakedown that they weren't paying the proper bids.
No,
he was shutting down the ones that didn't pay
at all.
I get confused.
The Indians were donating a lot of money to his campaign, and a thorn in their side was competition from the Chinese, who are addictive gamblers themselves and have their own card parlors and shit. I mean, it's a tiny fraction of what the Indians are making, but the Indians paid him to go out and get them. And he did their bidding by going around California, shutting down these Chinese card parlors.
Now, question: what happens when China steps in and says, "Well, you know what? We'll match what they're paying and raise it, have a bidding war for law enforcement."
I think China's got their hands full on the phone with the Iranians, telling them to surrender so they could get their fucking oil in a 4D chess move by Trump that everybody saw coming. Every war expert. Everyone who said they're going to mine the Straits of Hormuz, and I said, Don't we have minesweepers? And they've never heard of that. Then they said the drones will destroy the ships. And apparently we've been shooting down thousands of drones as the Russians and the Israelis. And they just keep moving the goalpost, Eric, in this anti-war, anti-Trump fervor to where this blockade is now made the Chinese get on the phone to Iran and say, give them the fucking uranium so we can get our oil, which is how this is going to end.
Well, and that is the sticking point. I mean, once we have that, and we clear, we're actively clearing the mines right now. Yeah. So it sounds like.
But why didn't anybody see that? You and I know this as kids about U.S. naval minesweepers. Why the fuck didn't any of the brilliant anti-Trump podcast woke Reich see that we could clear any mines with minesweepers? Why didn't they see that we could shoot down drones as everybody's been doing for 4 years? You know what I mean? They just keep coming up with these unbelievable impediments to the gigantic U.S. military. And when they're resolved immediately, they move to another imaginary impediment. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of makes you wonder. Well, I don't know. What is the motivation? I
don't care about the motivation. I'm just talking military strategy, how wrong they've been on every fucking beat of this miniature military action that's going on for 2 months. Well, he can't go past 60 days because of the War Powers Act. All he's got to do is send a letter to Congress. I need another 30 days.
Actually, he already took care of that because the ceasefire restarted the clock.
Right, but even if it doesn't, Hunley, even if he doesn't, he simply sends a fucking note to Congress. Why don't they acknowledge the factual history of the United States?
Or what about he had no plan?
He had no plan except for this incredible, complicated plan. You know what? Here's my take on this whole thing. They are not happy that he fucking didn't call them in the middle of the night to tell them his secret plan and tuck them into bed so they could sleep peacefully in their bed, knowing the entire military plan of Donald Trump. That is their tantrum. That is their secret fucking tantrum, that he did not tell them his secret plan so they could feel comfortable at night when they went to sleep. And I'm generalizing for effect, for humorous purposes. But generally speaking, I think that's his crime against humanity.
Well, yes. And by the way, the whole idea of no plan is so ludicrous its face, because how many bombs were dropped? How many? These are complicated maneuvers.
Of course.
You can't move, you can't move shit in and out and all of that without a plan. Now you could say it's a bad plan. Okay, but no plan? Oh, he didn't know.
But there is nobody.
He said, well, Bill, nobody, you go there.
There's nobody expressing any denunciation of the effectiveness of the U.S. military in this operation. In fact, even as harsh as critics have said this has been a near perfect military operation. They literally have no leg to stand on. They're now saying that because he didn't finish off the Iranian nuclear program with the original bombing, that he's a liar, and that he went in and he lied about finishing them off. So that's his new crime against humanity.
Well, no, they have another one too, that he's bombing schools and he's going after civilians.
Of course he
and
is.
He's destroying society. And there's more that they're
Why are we going back again to have peace talks literally 48 hours after this thing started? You know why? Because they're groveling to get this thing resolved, the Iranians.
Mark, Trump is groveling. Just ask them. Like, no, I'm telling you, they said that. Trump lied. He wasn't talking to the Iranians. He's begging. All of his releases are begging, Mark. I promise.
Do you see now why he couldn't reveal his military plans to the entire fucking world when he has so many domestic enemies? I mean, it's breathtaking that I don't care about the Democrats so much, but that the MAGA people are about 87% in favor of the war. The poll that came out yesterday showed across America, which was commented on this morning on two-way, 76% of the American people say that Iran's nuclear program has to be eradicated. Well, who's going to do that? Mel Torme? Who the hell's going to end the nuclear program of Iran? This war is such a simple idea. I have never seen a war more simplified in political pragmatism as to have it down to one idea. You could say, you know, the Nazis, this and that. You could say Vietnam was a malaise. There's all these different things, Saigon, South Vietnam. This is stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. You couldn't come up with a simpler idea, and yet these people have complicated this thing to make it like a Rubik's Cube of a paradigm, of a riddle, of an enigma wrapped inside of a fortune cookie. It's amazing. Right.
Well, and you know, you mentioned that, and I do agree. The people supposedly on his side, I find to be worse. I mean, I listen to Two-Way. I know you listen to Two-Way sometimes, yeah. Right? And Two-Way has, as the format, Mark Halperin, who I say is moderately left. He's center left slightly. And then he has somebody who's a Democrat, somebody who's a Republican.
Right.
The Democrats are pretty much in agreement with this, even on his show. It's kind of like,
I know,
even on this show, and these are like, you know, lobbyists and people who work with the Democratic Party. They advise people in Democrat, and even they're kind of going, yeah, well, you know, I'm kind of hoping this works out. And yeah, he's making pretty good moves here. And they sound more in favor than, you know,
and the MAGA Reich, and then the MAGA Reich. I mean, they kept crowing about how and including Mark Halperin, how the Iranians were going to blockade the Straits of Hormuz. Well, now Trump has pulled a Chaz Palminteri out of a Bronx tale and says, now you can't leave. Now I'm blockading you, you pricks. You're not getting any oil out. $287 million a day this is costing the Iranian regime. That's why they're moving at lightning speed on a 24-hour cycle. 287 a day in millions of dollars in revenue lost. Boy, he's an idiot, Trump. How did he come up with this? Give me a break. Give me a break.
You know what is ultimately, I think, driving it even faster is oil futures are plummeting.
Yeah.
So right now, oil's supposed to be completely skyrocketed,
right.
But currently the futures are plummeting, which means that, hey, the world's finding its oil. It might be up a little bit, but it's not having
it was a bomb.
So as long as it's no effect, then, you know, who cares? Iran, you're just another shop around the corner, and you're not getting it. But,
well, like he said, and others have said, and I have said, the Chinese get 80% of their oil from this system in Iran. They are now going to get on the phone with their client state and say, we don't give a shit what you're doing, just end it. And that's going to be how and why this ends. And that may be a matter of days.
All right. Well, now I want to shift. We have a guest with us today, and he can help us understand the fake MAGA and answer the burning question: is it the woke right, the woke Reich, or the neo-fascists? But we definitely want to talk to James Lindsay. He is joining us to help us kind of dig through. And James, you're looking really good right now because you've kind of been through it, I feel like, for the past year or so, with people attacking woke right, all that. And then all of a sudden, it's like all these operators are acting completely like they're off their medication. So has it been feeling good to be somewhat validated with your predictions?
So this is I mean, okay, you're right. They've gone bonkers and basically shown the world that they're bonkers. No, it does not feel nice to be validated. I would actually live in a world where I was wrong about this. This is what's happening is not good. It's I wasn't in doubt of my guess as to what was happening, my analysis. And so I'm not particularly happy seeing this come to fruit. And I didn't need the validation to begin with. Like, one of the neat things about just being put through it, as you said, is that you don't really care what people think about you anymore. So, oh, James was right, James was wrong, James is crazy. It's all just sounds. It doesn't mean anything anymore to me. So I don't particularly care about the validation. I just care about the work, the analysis, trying to get right answers about the world as best I can and get them out. But it sucks to see that this is what's going on. I would much rather have a MAGA, a Republican Party that's not infiltrated, than to have been right about them being infiltrated.
James, is this a psyop? I mean, where does this come from out of the blue all of a sudden the past few months? I mean, it seems to come out of left field, and now we're in the middle of this schism for people who have flipped their political opinions 180 degrees. Is it just money, or is it a psyop, or is it intellectual?
Well, I think it's a little bit of all of those. I think
Yeah.
it's the least intellectual
Yeah.
among the three. It's not, it looks like it's come out of left field. It hasn't. I've been tracking the development of this since 2021, and everything that we called the alt-right from 2014, maybe even earlier, through Charlottesville 2017, and then the aftermath of that, that was called the Unite the Right rally.
Mhm.
Um, it's all the same stuff. So this is a decade in the making. And what we're starting to recognize now is that there are some central operators, some of whom are intellectuals, but I don't think that that their materials are being truly intellectually engaged. So it feels more psyop and more people are just making money. When I said making money, I didn't say getting paid. There are probably people getting paid, but there are people making a load of money off of this.
Yeah.
The incentive structure on online monetization in particular has been skewed heavily in favor of this. What I would say is mostly a psyop. But when I said that we've got these intellectuals who aren't really intellectuals, I'm primarily talking about Alexander Dugin, this Russian philosopher is a stretch of a word, but this guy.
Yeah, can you tell us all about him? I've been wondering
Well,
about who he is.
No, I can't tell you all about him because he's got a lot to him. I've got some of his books. I have not read very far into his books because they're like 1,000 pages long. Foundations of Geopolitics is over 900 pages. This is a project to get through. I've read several of his essays. I did podcasts on 2 of those where I read through them and gave commentary, both written in the 90s, as was Foundation of Geopolitics. So the one essay I read is called Fascism Borderless and Red, where he declares himself a Russian National Socialist. He wrote that for the National Bolshevik official magazine of Russia.
I subscribe to that.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? And the other is called The Gnostic. And he actually says that left-hand path black magic is the true spirituality, which is sort of, a bridge pretty far.
Isn't
So
that
this
Crowley?
guy's a weirdo. Was that?
Yeah,
Left-hand path, isn't he?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you again.
I thought that was
talking-
Aleister Crowley, left-hand path.
Oh, yeah, it is. That's right. That's Aleister Crowley's
Yep.
program. And and so Dugin unabashedly says this is the only way to make history. This is the only way to do it.
Why
So
is
get on board
Dugin
with it.
from the 90s all of a sudden considered some intellectual influence on everybody? I mean, I read this guy's stuff a long time ago. I thought he was a crackpot, James. Why
Yeah.
is it? I mean, what is he, 100 years old? Is he even alive? I mean, what's the
He
deal
is
with
a-
his...
Well, he might be AI. Who knows?
He might be
I think
AI.
he is still alive. He is very old. So he's been foisted upon us. And this is where
Yeah.
it gets interesting. And you start to feel psyop and you tie
Yeah.
to the alt-right. So Alex Jones is eyeballs deep in this guy, for example. Of course, he's fringe in a way, but also not in another way. He's got a huge audience. Alex Jones has been actually talking about Dugin, had the Foundations of Geopolitics on his desk, for example, in shows at least going back to 2017.
Wow.
2018, you see Richard Spencer and Nick Fuentes talking about the fourth political theory that Dugin puts forth. You go
Okay.
a little later in 2018, Steve Bannon gets kicked out of the White House, goes to Rome, meets all day with Alexander Dugin. You go a little further forward and you start to see Tucker Carlson take an interest in Alexander Dugin, actually interviewed him while he was in Russia, smelling the bread and checking out the trains. And talking about Dugin's ideas, not always by name. And it's kind of taken off from there. This guy that calls himself Aaron McIntyre at the Blaze has interviewed Dugin once and hosted a discussion debate with Dugin and Nick Land. He's kind of been on the podcast circuit. Dugin's reaching out and saying that the best minds happening on the right are people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and so on. So there's something happening here. But
Okay.
what's happening is his ideas. And the Foundations of Geopolitics has this idea that America needs to be taken down by sowing discord from within. This seems to be what that PSYOP is about. He's very favorable toward Shia Islam in particular, the Iranian
Weird.
brand of Islam. He actually keeps talking about how the circumstances of Iran defeating the United States in the present conflict will bring about the opportunity for the promised one to return. So he openly says, it's not just hints. He openly says that the Shia Islam is the right way
Wow.
or a good way. So he's a very strange character, this guy. He's clear. He says we should arm the enemies of the United States with nuclear weapons and that the West needs to be destroyed, that the United States is fundamentally evil. So he's got a lot of bad ideas. And his other big idea, besides destroying the United States, was his kind of subterfuge, isolate and fracture from within model. America alone and America divided. would be that strategy. The other idea is the multipolar world, which he's written another book about much more recently, 2012 or something like this. And the multipolar world is this idea that we're going to split the world into more than two, so at least three spheres of influence that are roughly co-equal. It's not going to be a U.S.-led world hegemony. It's not going to be U.S. and China as competitors like we saw in the Cold War with kind of two poles. There will be at least three, which creates a different dynamic in the world. We can guess what those three are. They're not specified, but the three contenders outside of the U.S. sphere would be the CCP, China, Russia, and whatever was going on or is going on with the Iranian-controlled Islamic universe. And that's kind of a scary world to picture living in, that you've got these three other, basically the three main enemies of America as the other sphere of influence, other spheres, I should say. There's will be four spheres of influence competing with one another. For everything that I've seen, even looking at Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum supporting this idea of multipolarity a decade ago, all points to that multipolarity is China takes over the world with more steps. In reality, what it probably is that the Islamic crescent takes Western Europe, maybe some of Canada, Eastern Canada perhaps, keeps all of what it has already through the Middle East, the Near East, and down into Northern Africa. Russia would probably get Eastern Europe, and China would get the rest of Canada and most of Southeast and South Asia.
And probably the Western United States, if you're going to take...
And plausibly, yes, the whole Western United States as well. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you have America has no allies. The Western alliance is shattered, is gone. Oceania and so on are all under the influence of China. Europe is cloven in half, part Russia, part Islamic, and America is this isolated object fighting with itself while the other spheres of influence have space to grow, particularly China. So anyway, it seems to be that this is the model, and this is the thing you're hearing from people like Tucker Carlson who are also promoting Dugin, which is, the multipolar world already arrived. We should accept that. We should hand off some of our power to China. We should just deal with the fact he's pushing Islam like crazy. So he's pimping Russia like crazy. So those are the three other spheres of influence. It seems like whatever this operation is has fixated on Dugin's strategy. Yeah, and Dugin's solutions or plan as what it's circling around. But
what wasn't he originally depicted? I'm just vaguely remembering that he was like Putin's Rasputin at some point, and now he's shifted to where he's being embraced by these American right wingers.
That's right, and I mean that's actually kind of how he was put forth.
That's what I remember.
Putin's brain or Putin's Rasputin.
Putin's brain.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear if Putin actually likes him or just likes that what he's trying to get done in the world is advantageous to Russian interests as far as he sees them, which is probably what he actually likes. It's very unlikely that Putin likes this weirdo because he's
that's
very
what I think.
peculiar.
Right. Yeah, I think.
But he's also usefully peculiar, and so Putin's no dummy in the pragmatist dimension of life. He knows what he can make use of, and he will make use of it. So I think that was also a sales pitch, especially once the Ukraine conflict broke out in 22. So the Democrats are all in with Ukraine, therefore the Republicans should not be in with Ukraine. Some on the further right decided they were going to be in with Russia, and here's the thinker defining Russia. Alexander Dugin. So I feel like that narrative is primarily a sales pitch to Western right-wing people to try to get them to embrace Dugin as a kind of visionary thinker who has described, not prescribed a world, but described the world as it has already changed or is in the process of changing, a fait accompli. Therefore, we must embrace these ideas and make the best of what we have. And I think that's what's going on, but it feels very psyop. It feels very much like whether through money or through threats or through opportunity spaces or the contouring of money-making opportunities online and audiences in the digital space in monetization, it feels very contoured to push us in that direction. So,
well, let me ask you something. Could Tucker be the paymaster to smaller podcasters down below to carry this message?
I mean, the word "could" is a big word, right?
Yeah.
Is he financially capable of doing it? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
That does not seem to be the role that Tucker is playing. I'm not
Okay.
saying that he isn't, because I don't know.
Yeah.
The role that he seems to be playing is the popularizer. So if somebody else is coming around and paying to, probably what I would bet is you don't have some guy sitting there. Maybe it's this R.N. McIntyre character at the Blaze. It's not his real name, but maybe it's him. You don't have him sitting there and somebody says, here's $30,000, go do what we want, or here's $300,000, do what we want. It's, we're going to build you a podcast. We're going to give you a network. We're going to make sure your channel is monetizable, and you're going to make money hand over fist. And we're going to promote you through all the biggest channels.
Right.
And then Tucker Carlson's going to make sure you have a giant audience and make you famous.
Bingo.
And so it's more networky than it is, here's a illicit check in a back room. Although some of that probably
He legitimizes them.
He does. That's right.
Essentially.
And he's interviewed like virtually every one of these lunatics. Going back to even when he was still on Fox News, Martyr made Daryl
Yes.
Cooper, who he obviously interviewed infamously now more than once on his Tucker Carlson Network podcast. A lot of people forget that Martyr Made's original growth surge in his audience, not that he was unheard of, but he had a giant growth surge in his audience in 2020 after he put out a very long tweet thread talking about the tyranny of COVID, and Tucker Carlson read it on Fox News. So he was elevated there as well. So Tucker's been elevating a lot of these characters, not just Jeffrey Sachs and these kind of other questionable players, but Charles Haywood, R.N. McIntyre is another one.
Well, Dugan, when he was on Fox, he was questioning Amazon, saying, why are these books banned? This is the best historian, the best writer in all of Russia. Why can't we buy his book? So, and this
Well,
is
I think he's probably going to do it now with his new book club. He's probably going to have
Russell
all
Brand's book.
Well, Russell Brand, but that's innocuous. But I think he's going to have all the Dugan books probably for sale, James.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally plausible. This is another game that's been going on, whether it's Jonathan Keeperman, who goes by Lomaz over at Passage Press, or whether it's these lunatics at something called Imperium Press. There has been a effort to take books that are either hard to get or out of print or even banned, that are fascist or Nazi or, reactionary, counter-revolutionary, these kinds of words, these radical right-wing lines of thought, if we will, and getting them published and getting them into kind of the dissident right-wing spaces where people can get their hands on them, even if only by PDF. So there's been this effort to kind of bring these books, and then again, to shepherd new authors into the writing space, to bring these kinds of ideas to the fore, ideas that, were pretty soundly tested and rejected in the early part of the 20th century, or sometimes late part of the 19th century, are being reinvigorated. So to have Tucker do a book club that does this in what appears to be it doesn't appear yet, what could be a very not subtle way. He's about as subtle as a gorilla these days. It would not be a surprise for him to
It seems like the broadening or the popularizing of the UN's reader, of the UN's website, and all of their PDFs and all of their hate books and everything else on UN's, an expansion of that is what it looks like.
Legitimizing it is what
legitimizing it is.
It's like, I don't mind that the books they're out there. They're always going to be out there, or whatever. It's that he's lending credibility as Trump's friend, as Donald Trump, Jr.'s really close friend, as JD Vance's friend. And every time he props it up, then now all of a sudden, it's not just, it's fringe books. There's fringe books everywhere. They're being marketed as more mainstream because of Tucker.
Yeah, that's right. 17 million followers on X.
Wow.
And one of the most popular podcasts on whatever podcasting platforms. And then I don't know how they do the ratings on that actually, but very, very popular. And then obviously years and years and years of being one of the most trusted voices in conservative media.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's fair to compare him in terms of his standing to somebody like Rush Limbaugh, but as Rush exited the stage, Tucker Carlson's voice filled a lot of that vacuum, I think, for a lot of conservatives. I hear from conservatives all the time who are seeing Tucker's bizarre behavior, and they just almost pine. They're like, I wish we had Bowtie Tucker back. Tucker, he was the voice who kept me sane through so much of, and you pick the thing, COVID-19, BLM, you pick the thing. He was the guy saying the stuff that everybody could see, but nobody was saying and nobody was allowed to say. So it gave you that sense of, connection to sanity. So he built up a ton of trust with a very large movement. Obviously, Charlie Kirk defended him to the last.
Yeah.
Maybe
It was a
unwisely.
miniature version of that. Might have been Glenn Beck, James. You know what I mean? In between Rush and Tucker, where this guy goes off the rails, goes to rehab for Vicodin abuse. But he was a trusted voice of the right before he went off the rails.
Right. Well, yeah, I wish he was a more prominent voice right now, actually, because he's been talking about Dugan clear-eyed and very strongly since the 90s. I mean, way back when these books were first coming out, Glenn Beck was on his show, and I'm sure people thought he was a lunatic, and he was saying, you better watch out for this guy. You have got to pay attention to this Alexander Dugan. This is not for us. But he would only be doing that. He wouldn't be doing that just as like a gimmick. There had to be some reason that he thought there were circles within the American political body that were taking.
He must have been hearing about it. Yeah,
seriously. Yeah, he was.
He must have been hearing about it through his circles.
Must be. I mean, that's one of the ways that I got tapped into is like I would go to certain events and there would be people there that would say things and like something's not right. It's not everybody here, obviously, but some of these people have some bad ideas and something is brewing here. And you could see the coordination, you could see the money, you could see the deliberate efforts to take people off the table starting in 22.
Let me just get into some solutions with you. I mean, they're clearly ethnically cleansing the Middle East and eliminating Christians as far as they can see. How do you stop this wave of the Islamicists in the UK and France and Spain? I mean, is there any solution to this wave of Islamic takeover around the world?
Well, I was really hopeless about it.
I'm
for
hopeless
a while
about it. Yeah.
Well, the thing is the question mark, whether people like it or not, Donald Trump has stuck a giant question mark into that space that wasn't there in February. So we're just a month and a half out from when, I guess, I don't know if it's still Operation Epic Fury or they have to give it a new name now that there was a pause or whatever, but you know what we're talking about, this conflict that's not technically a war with Iran, at least from U.S. perspective. Taking Iran out as a sponsor of so much, Hezbollah, the Houthis, you go down the Hamas, you go down the list. A lot of what's going on in these foreign countries, taking Iran out of the equation introduces a completely different playing field where it's very difficult to say what the horizons of possibility are. We've been looking at the UK, we've been looking at France, we look at Spain, we look at Germany and, Belgium and so on. And we look at them on their own terms. How can the UK on UK terms solve this problem? But if there is a massive sponsor that's preventing other solutions from being on the table or that's feeding the problem, cutting off it's like if you have like a pool and it's got sludge flowing in and you can cut off the inflow. Now you have a different circumstance about how you deal with the contaminated pool. So
can we add in Venezuela too? Because I think these are all part of a full-blown strategy. Because taking over Venezuela, getting a hold of that oil helps narrow down Iran even more, and it sidelines China and Russia kind of in one couple shots there, and it's a pretty strong move.
Yeah, what Trump's doing is rewriting the entire geopolitical world. I don't want to say world order, like there's going to be some new political, UN ruling over, Board of Peace ruling over everything. What he's doing is he's changing the entire playing field.
Yep.
So the Western alliance is basically gone. Trump has seemed to recognize this. He seems to understand this multipolar world. Venezuela's oil is a huge game changer that puts China in the position of being almost wholly dependent on Iran. Now Iran's a domino about to fall. Right. And if you look at you kind of look at the geography of it, I don't know what'll happen in Europe, but we've got the United States. Maybe he does Greenland, maybe he doesn't, but you got the United States, and then it's got its alliance with Israel. And so Israel and United States are clearly an extraordinarily effective military alliance if they decide to do something.
Is that why they attack Israel so viciously?
Yes.
I know the answer. I just wanted to hear from you.
But look what happens next. If Iran becomes free, who do you think they're going to ally with? the United States and Israel. So now you have this major shift in the alliance board. So then you have another chip on the table, which is India. India's BRICS right now. It's the ION BRICS, but it's not really happy with that. It has a really positive working relationship with Israel. Imagine if India decides to join this alliance. And then what do you have? You have this Southeast Asian rim that is terrified of China. I'm talking Japan, I'm talking South Korea, and which is a little bit messed up right now, and I'm talking Taiwan, which is under tremendous threat. Imagine if you just add Taiwan and Japan to that. You've got a line, a diagonal line cutting across, almost a horizontal line actually, cutting across the Eastern Hemisphere that takes this multipolar world project and sticks America's not isolated anymore. America's directly injected across the entire thing with a new alliance.
Is he trying to isolate China, James?
I mean, he must
geographically isolate them.
That, and to again put that line of division between all of the potential multipolar world BRICS states. You just draw that line across the Eastern Hemisphere, and all of a sudden, yeah, if China and Russia want to have an alliance, that's fine. But here's America knocking on your door in a way that they couldn't even do from Afghanistan. So you're talking about a really big shakeup to the world and a really, really big disruption to the plans, the Belt and Road Initiative, for example, but the other plans that China and Russia have been making all of a sudden, all at once. And you have the possibility of, they've had this long-running, slow-running plan, in my opinion, to relocate the centers of global power in Asia, whether that's Russia or China or some alliance or both, and out of, at least for the Eastern Hemisphere, and out of the United States and Western alliance. And all of a sudden, that plan goes in the toilet. It's completely disrupted.
Yeah.
So now China's playing by our rules. China's back underneath a Western.
Well, he threatened them with a 50% tariff yesterday. So
absolutely. And when they don't have this access to oil, that's a serious game to play with them.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about changing the entire program, but that program, the first link in the chain, is the U.S.-Israel alliance. So the primary thing that the enemies of that strategy, which is the U.S. strategy, are going to try to do is to sever that alliance and to undermine the movement in the United States that supports that alliance. And so
let's talk about that movement in the United States, because I wanted to ask you how we get rid of domestically the enemies within the gates, the Marxists that have infiltrated the United States into every single corner of the country, James. Media, academia, schools, elementary schools. What do we do here to fight this back? It seems like an unwinnable battle, James.
Well, I mean, I used to think that, and I don't believe in unwinnable battles anymore because I live what it appears to be in an age of miracles, and there's nothing to do but be grateful. But no, the answer primarily, actually, I think right now is the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court can actually put us back on legal ground that allows us to chip away at those things very effectively. And this court is able and willing to do it, especially with the right cases. And it has been doing it. We're already moving in that direction. So this is a 20 or 30 year fix to get all these people out of civil servant positions and to fix the teacher I mean, it's not even the teacher pipeline. I was going to say pipeline. It's the whole situation of education. It's a gigantic
the teachers union. And
I mean, this is 20 years minimum to fix this. But
what if they get back into power, the Democrats, and stack the court like they said and promised that they would?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a real problem. What'll probably actually happen, not that it's necessarily good, is a civil war will likely break out. I mean, that's going to be a uncrossable line that got crossed in terms of just snatching power. Like Trump's not trying to do something like that. He's playing within the rules or right at the edge of them. But my point with the Supreme Court, like here's just one example. Right now, the left has been able to accomplish a very large percentage, not all, but a very significant percentage of what they've been able to accomplish through
the courts.
But through manipulation of civil rights law to their own advantage.
Right, exactly.
In particular, this one narrow point, and this is some, I would say, double-digit percentage. I wouldn't say greater than 50%, but it's a double-digit percentage of what they've been able to accomplish. and just leveling the Civil Rights Act so that it is no longer that particular identity categories
I've
are
said that
protected
for
classes.
years. I've
But
said that
rather,
for years.
so we throw out the disparate impact doctrine and we get back to this. If white people are discriminated against, then white people have a lawsuit. If black people are discriminated against, then black people have a lawsuit. And we're going to assume that you have to intend to discriminate in order to have discrimination. What this does is it turns the Civil Rights Act into a sword in our hands rather than a sword in theirs. And that change, it's imagine like if you got into a fight with a guy and he's got a sword and you somehow managed to get his wrist to take his sword away from him and he doesn't have one and you do now. You're in a different fight. Right. So the hopelessness goes away. There are other domains as well. I mean, with the Supreme Court has made massive strides in the past few years at trying to very much clarify the issue around, say, transgender stuff. And it's almost all tilting in our favor. They're starting to question, when we look at the decision regarding Roe versus Wade, you start to see that they're questioning the judicial logic of the 1960s and 70s and 80s. It's not the particular rulings. It's the judicial logic that led us into this problem. And if that can create
almost like the ghost of Scalia is haunting the Supreme Court.
Well, Baruch Hashem to that. So there's a huge opportunity there for this. The other thing, Trump even said this the other day, right? Remember, Trump said about 2 weeks ago, even with everything else going on, it maybe kind of fell through the cracks, but he said that that we would have a budget surplus, not a budget deficit, if we just cleaned up 50% of the fraud. And that doesn't even count like these not fraudulent in the legal technical sense, but like shady arrangements between unions and voter, Democrats and so on. There's a ton of fraud. So if Trump understands that, you can bet that if he has the opening and the capacity to do it, he's going to start going after that fraud wheel, which that fraud wheel is not just wasting taxpayer money. It's wasting taxpayer money to do those leftist agendas. And a lot of the people that we need to get out of positions are involved in that fraud. So you're talking about the possibility to prosecute some of them or many of them. That's that's a playing field shift. So Trump has in his sights multiple shifts to the playing field on the global stage and on the domestic stage both. So, I feel like it's impossible not to have hope. The question is just, can Trump keep the momentum and political capital and maybe the Congress that he may or may not need behind him in order to accomplish these kind of sea changes? And can a successor be found who understands this and pushes it? I don't know. Maybe Ron DeSantis. He seems to kind of.
I thought that yesterday too. That's what I started thinking. The same thing yesterday about DeSantis.
Rubio. I think Rubio.
That's
pretty in line with
Rubio.
Trump.
There's a model out here going on of what you just described. And I'm in L.A. They have a guy named Bill Assaley out here as an assistant U.S. prosecutor who's been arresting people almost every other day out here for fraud. So I believe that this might be the model, what I'm living in right now, because they're taking them down left and right here, James.
This is what has to happen. And like I refer to this as leveling the liability field. Notice I didn't say shifting the liability field back to our favor or back to our favor. It is leveling it. If we level the liability field, all the manipulations that the Marxists depend upon to have foisted their agenda from a minority all go away. And they all become weapons in our hand rather than in their hand. If we shift the global stage to where Russia and China are not in a position to be able to continue to do the kinds of sponsorship they do of some of these agendas, or Iran being this terror sponsor, there's undoubtedly a link between the left and whatever it's called Palestine, which is an Iranian project. You're talking again. This is a complete. It's like playing a board game, and all of a sudden the board changes, or
just to
a chess game or something.
To interject, Nithya Raman, who is running for mayor here in L.A., I don't know if she's going to win, but if they did take LA, that would give them the three major cities in the United States, with New York and Mandami and Chicago and LA. That is not a movement that's receding out to the ocean.
No, it's not. And it's a big concern. Our cities are in a really dangerous position. And like I said, I think that this is where I think a lot of people on the right who are, we'll call them intellectual, but the right word is emotional, or just not corrupt. Okay. So a lot of these people see that and that kind of thing in despair. and they're not thinking in what I phrase it is that they're thinking in this at the speed of podcast instead of thinking at the speed of reality. The speed of reality is that these are 20 plus year projects, and we're going to win some, we're going to lose some, and we're going to have to keep playing the game, showing up and playing smart and playing well. But what I saw was a massive demoralization campaign against President Trump because he wasn't solving intractable problems in 3 months.
Right.
That's the speed of podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like Charlie Kirk, when he was murdered, people started to say it must be a conspiracy because the government hasn't told us anything about the guy they arrested as a murderer. Well, of course not. It takes, there's an entire process to that, and everything's kept quiet because you don't want to taint a jury pool.
I said that before you came on, that Trump didn't tell them his complete military plans before they went to bed. So they started to have a temper tantrum and attack him.
It's the biggest actually entitlement complex I've seen since 2020 when people thought they could loot on moral authority.
Thank you. I agree with you. It's insane.
Entitlement complex.
Wow.
Oh, I have a big conservative MAGA podcast. I should know everything President
That's
Trump.
what I've been saying on this show. The same thing. I know, it's insane. It's totally insane. He didn't tell me his military plan, so I'm going to denounce him now.
Question. Yeah. You were starting to say you were being more hopeful lately and seeing things here. I keep telling Mark that I feel like watching Tucker, watching Candace, watching Megyn Kelly, especially, she's like really a good barometer on this. Are they getting more shrill because it's not working, and they're whatever motivation behind them, be it paymasters, influence, whatever it is, it seems like they're getting louder and louder and more shrill, not hiding the ball, not saying, oh, Zionist. Now some of them just flat out say Jew. Is it working? Is that what you're seeing? And we're just a little slow in picking up on it.
Yeah, that's my feeling. They are much more shrill. I feel like at some point they committed to this project and they crossed the Rubicon, and they know that they can't go back. There's only forward to go. It's possible as well. And I take this, I don't have evidence of this, but I take this possibility, this hypothesis quite seriously as something to watch for, even circumstantial evidence of. It's possible that some of these people, I don't know if they have paymasters, that some of these people have been told you're in, and if you back out, it's going to be real bad for you. And now all of a sudden, because you're seeing actual crazy behavior, right? You're seeing the kind of behavior that it just shows up under extraordinary duress. Megyn Kelly, I think, shows that sort of timbre. Tucker's laugh alone shows that kind of energy. It feels very much to me like they've been told, look, if you back out, it's curtains for you. There's no going back. And so they've got one job. The job is to go forward. And if they just bleed their audience along the way, they're just going to do a running finish here. I don't have a better read for that. I don't know why that's the strategy. They don't really have a path back home. What career does Tucker Carlson have after what he's done now? If like suddenly the world snaps its fingers and goes back to being sane, he's got one and only one career path left open to him. Where does he go? You don't come back from some of this stuff. And Nick Fuentes, what's he going to do? Kevin Roberts at Heritage, what better job is this guy ever going to get in his life than a job that pays him $1 million a year at Heritage? This cushy sinecure that he's sitting in. What better job? What's he going to do? Going back to being a professor at a Catholic university? Where's he going after some of this stuff? So a lot of them are, whether they have this threat profile or not, they just don't have other options. So go forward, hope it works out. And, the jackpots on the other side of the rainbow is kind of their only rational calculation. If you're
even Alex Jones was, lashing against Candace Owens and Owen Schroyer of all people. So there was this battling. And now Alex Jones is saying, Candace Owens is the most important podcast.
What about
McGinnis? About face.
Also McGinnis, who started to attack them.
Oh, well, Gavin McGinnis just came out. Yeah, it literally has said, all that. He's always kind of been quietly standing by, I felt like.
James, I've been calling him the MAGA Reich for a reason. The obvious reasons are, embracing the Third Reich, rewriting Hitler's life story. Is it possible that they have embraced fascism as a way to finally confront communism head on in our own domestic politics?
I know that some of them have, but not necessarily big players because they've said so. Sometimes to me privately or to other people that I know privately. Other times they've said quite clearly enough. Things like saying that we need a Protestant Franco or a Protestant Hitler. I know Franco wasn't technically fully a fascist. They call him a
Right.
semi-fascist in
Yeah.
the academic world. But the answer is undoubtedly that some of them, the answer is yes. Others are a little bit more cloaked about it. You'll see them talking about, I've seen an argument, for example, it cracks me up. The guy says, fascism, what a stupid debate. What the better debate is whether or not we want to think of America in a corporatist term. And the corporatism that he says he means, and I just recently released a podcast with it, he says the corporatism that I really mean isn't just working with the corporations or making sure the corporation's first duty is to fulfill the needs of the state, which represents the will of the people, which PS, that's fascism. It is more specifically to think of the root word for corporate is corpus, which means body. So you think of the entire society as a single functional body, and the individuals are cells, the institutions are like organs, and everybody does their part for the body, and the body comes first because the cells can't live without the body itself. And so the government then and its intellectual apparatuses become the nervous system of that. And this is the argument, and I'm like, that's fascism. Like, you read 10 pages of Mussolini or almost any of Hitler.
Even Lindbergh, called it America First. His movement, embracing the Third Reich. You don't have to go back that far.
Yeah, and that was, of course, you've got, they even repeat Hitler and his infamous.
Fuentes is doing that, and he quotes Lindbergh, and he doesn't hide the ball. He literally
doesn't hide the ball at all. Hitler had his 39 Reichstag speech before he started the war, and he says right in there a slogan that we hear today, which is, he says, Britain to the British, France to the French, America to the Americans, Germany to the Germans. And so they're saying America to the Americans in line with their, it's not really just America first now, it's America only mentality, which again plugs right back into our fascism, borderless and red, National Bolshevist idea of Alexander Dugin. They've taken up the philosophy, the thinkers among them have strongly taken up the philosophy of one Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt was was nicknamed the crown jurist of the Third Reich. He was the legal theorist who gave justification for how Hitler organized his Führerprinzip and to run the Reich. And Schmitt's ideas were, it's just a very interesting point, since I said National Bolshevism and connected. I'm not going to go into all of Schmitt, but he had a book in 1922 or 3 called Political Theology that he wrote. And this thing gets resurrected a couple of decades ago, and is published again in English, or for the first time in English, actually. It's published in English, and it receives a foreword by the philosopher Tracy Strong, who is at least intrigued with Schmitt. Whether he agrees fully with him or not, he's intrigued with him and respects his thinking. But what Strong writes in the foreword to Political Theology, when it got published in English for the first time, is that what Schmitt's philosophy represents is undoubtedly what he calls a right-wing Leninism. So National Bolshevism, which is what Dugin puts forth, is undeniably the same thing, right-wing Leninism. That's what the
National Socialism is.
Yeah, right. And so, and Tucker is out here like, oh yeah, Maduro was great because he's socially conservative, which means what he's actually pushing is socially conservative socialism, as opposed to the left's socially liberal socialism or outright flaming communism.
Yeah, I thought the timing of giving, I don't even know where this came from, but Ben Ferenc got the Congressional Medal of Honor yesterday. And people don't even know who he is, but I just thought the timing of that was very interesting. Ferenc was the one who prosecuted a lot of the Third Reich and got the most of them convicted and death sentenced, receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor out of the blue yesterday. I thought maybe this is some sort of pushback.
It seems that Trump is pretty clearly aware of that something's going on. How much of the depth he understands is unclear. He's become interested in it. So
absolutely.
From what I understand, he picks things up pretty quickly. The saying, from what I've heard from people who work in the administration, both the first administration and this one, is never forget Trump is smarter than you. And so if he's locked onto these guys to some degree, like, this isn't going to go well for them. So these are the kinds of plays that you could, I know it's Congress, not Trump, but this is the kind of plays that you would expect if there's about to be this concerted pushback.
Right, right.
And Trump is, obviously we also have, the remembrance of Shoah. Is it today or yesterday? Right now, at any rate, that is being celebrated by the Jews. But what is it, Yom Shoah? Is that how they say it? I don't remember. Pardon me if I'm wrong. But at any rate, they have this kind of signaling is timed right, and it sends the right message that this kind of, George Lincoln Rockwell 2.0.
I keep mentioning
American
Rockwell on the show.
Well,
Everybody
so they
forgets
bring up
George Lincoln
Rockwell and
Rockwell.
Wink, and then say that they're talking about Norman and his paintings, and I
Right.
no,
Yeah.
they're not.
Oh, come on. They can't
Yeah.
be doing that.
Oh,
That
question
they
on that. I have a theory that Trump has been on to the whole Tucker Carlson trashing him, everybody else for a while, and coincidentally, I think used them and let them rail that, oh my God, 25th Amendment, get them out of here, get them out. Let them, have their hair on fire right when he's doing the operation. He does the truth. They all respond to it accordingly. And now suddenly Iran is saying, oh shit, maybe we need to talk about a ceasefire right now because he may actually do it. All these people who are in support of us are going completely crazy or scared out of their minds. Am I wrong that he maybe has delayed responding to these people until recently, figuring, well, you know what? I'm going to let them just do this shit and then use them down the road.
So not only do I think that's likely to be the case, I think it goes deeper than that. I suspect some of the rumors, at least the rumors, that there are actual investigations into, undisclosed FARA with some of these people, relationships with foreign countries, maybe worse, maybe sedition or treason. I don't know. What depends on the scope of it. Some of these people are saying things during a military operation like that, nobody should join the military, or that
That's insane. Yeah.
people who are in the military should refuse to follow their orders
Candace
and
Owens,
just
yeah.
accept dishonorable discharge and all this because of their conscience or whatever. And some of this stuff's bad. I would be not surprised to find out that there are more thorough investigations happening, and that that's very Trump to let people have more than enough rope to hang themselves dozens of times over. It's also very Trump to throw out these little things that provoke them to go bananas. He did it with the visible left, and this right hand of the left, as I call it. He's just as good at playing them, I'm sure, if he actually is. So I think you're probably correct, at least to some degree, and that to me it seems pretty plain that by last October at least he was aware something's not right, and that at least monitoring the situation and laying plans and making use of them, as you suggest, had already begun by that point. Joe Kent being kind of a shining example of that being very likely. Joe
Kent seems like one big psyop, James.
I think he is.
Timing. I mean,
Yeah.
God,
Oh, yeah.
he leaves the office. He's on Tucker the next day. He's vetting people for Candace Owens, for God's sake. He's the one who leaked the Charlie Kirk group chat potentially. You can't say 100%, but I'd say very high probability he was the guy who leaked it and did everything else. So,
Yep. So this is where I circle back to that optimism, Eric, you were asking me about earlier. So the kind of MAGA rank and file and what I've referred to as middle MAGA, when I wrote an essay about this split about a year ago, I said that you can think of MAGA as being in kind of three tiers: elite MAGA, middle MAGA, and then normal MAGA or normie MAGA. And middle MAGA is kind of the guys that do all the work. They're engaged online. They're running small organizations. They're doing the grassroots stuff. They're showing up to the grassroots organizations and participating and so on. And, they've got their smaller shows, but they're not the superstar tier. And they're probably not on a stage at TPUSA, right? Yeah, right. So middle MAGA seems to have realized not only that something is going wrong, but it appears that it's coordinated. That this is this is a group of people that in some capacity, for reasons unknown, but that can be guessed at with no good guesses involved, are working together to some degree. How coordinated is unclear, but the fact that, you've got this degree of coordination between Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and Alexander Dugan and John Mappin, this strange British Scientologist.
I was going to ask you about him, the Scientologist.
Yeah,
I mean, I
ask
don't
you
know
about-
much about him.
Yeah, I don't know about him, but I wanted to get your take on Vance. Is he a stooge in this? Like, what's the deal with Vance, James?
I think that Vance was meant to be the heir apparent to
Right.
Trump, but also
Right.
the vehicle of this movement and its
Yep.
next step.
Absolutely.
And I think he was aware of it and is not interested whatsoever
Yeah.
in alienating it. But this has put him in a dilemma where
Yeah.
he's been trying to have a foot on the tip of each horn of the dilemma for too long.
Yeah.
And so now, to use the kind of visual of that metaphor, he's torn his pants and people.
I was going to say split his pants, but
Yeah.
you got it.
Yeah. So I think that that's sort of the what's happened there. But I think so what is undeniable is that this movement up until very recently claimed him,
Yeah.
even though he didn't explicitly claim them, but he never actually properly distanced from them either. So he played that game, that political game with them, where he never said no, but he never came out and said it too explicitly yes. He did say yes at other times. In 2023, for example, he was on a stage talking with Patrick Deneen, professor at Notre Dame, who wrote Regime Change. And there was an event for his book. He was on stage with Kevin Roberts from Heritage at that event, the three of them. And then there was a journalist, I think, from one of the left-wing outlets. I forgot which one. I don't want to say MSNBC or CNN. I think it was something else, New York Times, something. It wasn't any of those, but it was a left-wing outlet. And they had this 4-person panel to talk about Deneen's book, Regime Change. And Vance identifies himself to the audience. This is in 23 when the book came out. Identifies himself to the audience as part of this new right, or this whatever it wants to be called, this new right, or he doesn't call it, of course, woke right or anything.
The fact you said that, and I want to jump in because I wanted to ask you earlier. New right makes me think of the Michael Malice book, which I've always really enjoyed. It was written all the way back in like 2015, 2016,
which was looking at
that
the
pretty much
alt-right.
on point for identifying all these characters. Like if people want to learn about them and learn about the history of Richard Spencer and whatnot, that
or James or Pat Buchanan.
Well, yes, and Pat Buchanan, yes. I think that Michael's book is a valuable contribution on this. Yeah. He was looking at the alt-right and looking at how it was developing and how it was making networks in different shapes and mostly online right-wing spaces, or highly online right-wing spaces. And he was mapping out something that was really happening. I don't know I've seen them call themselves a lot of things, though. I've seen them call themselves the new right, the new Christian right, the dissident right, the Buchanan right.
Paleoconservatives is a big one.
Which one? Paleoconservatives? Yeah. Of course, they don't like to be called the woke right or anything of the kind, but they do identify with all of that. But post-liberal was the other word that Vance used to identify himself while sitting there with Patrick Deneen. Of course, the United States Constitution is the classical liberalism that Deneen indicts in that book. And so to say that you're post-liberal suggests that you're past the capacity to continue believing in the American Constitution and the political order that it creates. So I don't know how long Vance has been of that mind, but the point was that he has occasionally signaled strongly, alignment with this movement, at least the intellectual circuits of it.
Because that Vance and Peter Thiel, he's got to come up. If JD Vance comes up, Peter Thiel's kind of got to come up too. And
Peter likes these guys. I mean, I know Peter a little bit. Just full disclosure, I have met Peter and spoken with Peter, and I know Peter a little bit. Peter likes these guys. He's held that Hereticon in Miami every year for goodness knows how many years. Curtis Yarvin, I don't know what their relationship is exactly, but it seems to be that there may be patronage involved, maybe not. But Curtis Yarvin is certainly invited to an awful lot of things because Peter thinks he's intriguing. And at least other people who want to have access toward Peter's money are going to flatter Peter by inviting people that Peter thinks are intriguing. And so, a lot of these guys are in this kind of extended Peter Thiel umbrella. Peter's a curious guy. I mean, he has a lot of diverse interests. He is very interested in elevating voices outside of kind of the acceptable mainstream. Of course, he skews Straussian and skews to the right in doing that. But for example, he's happy to kind of try to elevate intelligent design guys that are perfectly decent fellows and not shady in any way, but they're just, biology doesn't take them seriously. So they don't have anywhere to go to be serious. So Peter Thiel likes to, give them an opportunity to be serious. And so he's a very curious guy. like anybody, I don't think there's all bad and all good. He's some strange mix of this, but he was certainly the kind of the creator in some sense of the political object, not the individual, but the political object we call J.D. Vance. And he's certainly been very interested and tied to and connected to a lot of these fellows. At one point, I mentioned a name that is not very prominent earlier, but there was this kind of debate going on online about this radical right or new right or whatever we want to call it at one point a couple of years ago. And there's this lunatic, Tucker Carlson had him on the show. He is a total Franco guy. His name is Charles Haywood. Charles Haywood is very wealthy. He describes himself in his own words as rich beyond the dreams of avarice. He owned the shampoo company, a black hair care product company called Mansfield King, which he sold to the Pritzker family and became fabulously wealthy some years ago. And so he's very rich. And at one point it was, somebody asked, and there he is in this kind of thread on Twitter, who's funding all of this radicalism on the right? And Charles replied, I am, of course. And well, Peter.
Wow.
Meaning Peter Thiel.
What about, in the same circle, because we were throwing names around, one of your, I consider him almost a peer, Brett Weinstein. What's going on with him lately?
Wish I knew. I've always been friends with Brett. I met Brett, probably back in 16 or 17. It's a very long time ago. Of course, I've been to the house. I know the family. I know Brett. We've been friends a very long time. So I'm hesitant to say anything bad about Brett, as we've been friends for over a decade, and that's something, right? And he's always been very polite, very generous, very kind with me, very thoughtful with me. He's never gone after me particularly, but last summer he had me onto the Dark Horse podcast to try, basically he called it, I think he was joking, but he called it an intervention to try to pull me back from the ledge of calling out this woke right. And it was very aggressive.
Wow.
And I didn't let it, I spent a lot of time still. We were there together in Palm Springs, California for Freedom Fest. Spent a lot of time with him through the rest of the event, spending time. I didn't let it alienate us or whatever. We stayed friendly. I've stayed friendly with him since, but he's gone all the way with this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's been shocking and a bit sad for me.
Absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking.
He's a progressive. So, a lot of us forgot that he's a progressive.
Is he just going back to his roots?
He's going back to his roots. He's going back.
Possible. It's totally possible. I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's unfortunate. I don't know if, he was right about a lot of the conspiracism through COVID and through, we got very interested in the Maha kind of environment. There's a lot in the medical literature that is suspicious. These Maha doctors are onto something. And one of the invitations into this line of thought in this movement is basically tipping over the edge of the conspiracism, where everything kind of has to be seen through the conspiracy lens. And I don't know if that's it. Again, he's a friend of mine, so I find it uncomfortable to talk about him in a way that, might shine negatively. But just to be honest, I'm concerned about it. I am a little bit shocked by it. I could be cordial with him in person still, but it would be one of those weird things where you don't talk about the things you don't talk about.
Would you agree, though? I look at this whole environment, obviously from the outside, much smaller platform or whatever. And I feel like there's the pure grifter. And I would just say Candace Owens, pure grifter. I don't think she has a political care in the world about any direction, any philosophy. As long as she's famous and people adore her, she's there. And then Megyn Kelly, I kind of put her sort of going that direction. Tucker, I actually think, has a political agenda. And I feel like there's differences in the grifting class. Would you agree with my assessment?
Candace's husband, that there's a political
George Farmer, sure.
There's a political connection there, Eric.
And an operational one, which I do agree with you, though. There are differences in the levels of ideological commitment and in fact, the ideologies of some of these people. For example, all of the kind of radical right who want to overthrow the American Constitution are kind of fellow travelers or co-belligerents, but in no universe whatsoever, even the ones, these Christian nationalist guys that beat their chest and spout off about Hitler, like Joel Webbin and all this, even in their heart of hearts, those guys, into the depth that they are or signal or maintain pretenses of Christianity, cannot go all the way with the pagan evolutionist eugenicist Nazis. There
Yet.
is
Yet.
eventually an ideological. Well, what there is an ideological fork in the road. They can go so far and then they have to choose. You can't have both at some point. And so my point being is that there are ideological figures in this and they don't all align. And so that makes it much more complicated. And it also causes them to fight with each other. But then there are very grifter characters that I think are just in it for the grift. And then there are, I think, very operational characters who are maybe it's because they don't have any core principles and they're being rewarded handsomely in some way or another, but that they are doing what they're told to do by somebody on somebody's program. I suspect people like Ian Carroll operate that way, for example.
Ian Carroll.
Is it possible that they have different ideological handlers?
That's also possible. Yeah. I mean, some of the people at the level of what we might call paymaster or whatever, you know, I used to call them the masters of the universe, are not aligned. I mean, Peter Thiel, for example, has, if we just invoke him, has a very peculiar philosophy, and it's very tech acceleration. It's very tech forward. He has very strong business interests with Palantir and Endural and so on. And not all of what those corporations do. I know a lot of people just, as soon as they hear the word, they hiss like a snake, but not all of what those corporations do is intrinsically bad. The technology space is important and complicated and actually has to be looked into because it cuts both ways and different things cut more good and more bad. And then there's a space of can be good or could be bad depending on what we do with it. And it's a very complicated space. But then you can flip over to people that, you know, who was the primary funders of the World Economic Forum, for example? Well, a lot of people will say George Soros, and that's probably not right. It's probably Stephen and James Riotti from the Lippo Group. If you read any of the documentation on it, the Lippo Group is one of the primary financial sponsors behind the World Economic Forum. Well, the Riottis, if I'm not mistaken, are in some kind of weird Christian eschatological cult. They have their own totally weird vision for the world and what they want to accomplish in it. And they have ties to the CCP's side of the vision, which may not align with, you know, Tucker Carlson coming out and saying that, you know, Islam loves Jesus. And so Christians should recognize that there are definitely at this, whatever the higher levels are, there are definitely disagreements. I don't think it's
in other words, like, let's say Cutter, for argument's sake, that Cutter was the manipulator of Tucker and financial paymaster. And MI6 through Candace's husband were the ideological masters of Candace. There would be conflicts just by having different ideological handlers, James.
Correct. And again, like I said, and there's Beijing has its own set, and you know, Moscow has its own set. And what they all have in common, however, is that Donald Trump is in the way, and Donald Trump's movement is a fundamental problem. And so they can work together and sort out the details later in the same way that on the communist side, the Red-Green Alliance.
I was going to say Red-Green Alliance is coming up.
And so right now it's like we actually are kind of facing this, the ends of the horseshoe are touching, they say, is we have like a red, green, brown, black alliance. It's like they've all the bad guys are teaming up together.
There's also a ticking clock on Trump. I mean, so to them, like running out the clock is to their advantage if you can just sow chaos in the meantime for those 36 months. And then you've got a plan. If their plan was to front in J.D. Vance, that's a fairly good strategy.
Yeah, absolutely was or is. And that might explain why they're just going for broke, because if their plan is just sow chaos, then that's what they're doing. The problem is that people, the left got this wrong too. It actually has a name. The left complains about it in their own literature. It's called activism fatigue. So the thing is that people get tired of this crap eventually. You can only rant about the Jews so long before it just starts turning into not just a joke.
Don't sell them short, Jake.
They've been doing it for a couple thousand years. So I say it's a long story process.
I understand, but like, you know, it's even becoming a running joke. I've shared it a few times. I've heard it from other people. I've seen it online. You know, Tucker shares something and it's just, let me guess, it's the Jews, right? And so what happens is it becomes, as far as it being a active measure that actually bears fruit in the moment, it'll come back, but in the moment is that it becomes boring, it becomes predictable, it's no longer got the
I think that's what McGinnis was saying yesterday, Eric.
It is. And you hear that.
Yeah,
you hear that frustration and boredom.
Well, Nick Fuentes is saying it. That's the irony, is you even have within there Fuentes is sometimes saying, guys, we look like idiots. We got to come
Let me
up
tell you
with some
something.
new
If the
stuff.
Nazis don't support death to the Jews, who will, Eric? I mean, this
Yeah,
is
I'm
getting
telling
silly.
you. I agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say about Nick except, that I think that whatever his other agendas are, whatever his ideological and political beliefs are, and he seems to have them, he's been very open at many times about what he sees himself as doing is running a online cult. He wants a group of dedicated followers who will attack his enemies when he wants them attacked, who will listen to his words when he says them, will repeat things that he says, will show up and disrupt events that he wants disrupted, and who will I already said fight his enemies for him. There was another point that I would give him money.
It sounds like his own brown shirts, James.
Yeah, very much does feel like that. Yeah. It's good luck to him. The future of the brown shirts was to become the SA, the Sturmabteilung, and then that was taken care of at the night of long
Night
knives.
of the Long Knives, yeah.
So,
which I
good
was
luck to
going to
him.
say moments ago that there may be coming an ideological Night of the Long Knives.
It's plausible. I mean, depending on how you want to see it, the things that Trump has been doing since this conflict kicked off, it's like a inverted one though, right? Because it's now Trump is just eliminating his enemies because his enemies are actually bad, as opposed to eliminating them because they're a challenge to his power. But these guys might actually do this across the bow with each other. Like, they're getting
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, right. And you've seen this a little bit. You'll see them start to nibble, to turn on one another.
Yeah.
If it becomes very clear that the ship is going down, that will happen. And the lowest hanging fruit to go after is going to be Candace. They've already signaled very clearly that they're going to go after Candace.
Yeah.
And that Candace is too high on the liability scale and is not going to work out well for her. Also, her fan base is very much not young men, which is the primary fan base that they're trying to operate in. It is primarily middle-aged women.
Middle-aged women.
It turns out the right wing also has wine moms.
Yes.
Oh.
The left did not have a monopoly on crazy wine moms.
Wow.
Nobody wants to admit it. There are a lot of things conservatives don't like to admit about them, their own.
It sounds like these female romance novel readers that follow Candace.
That's true. It's Lifetime TV. Candace is Lifetime online.
Lifetime. And what happens to this awkward situation where J.D. Vance's deputy press secretary is the son of Tucker Carlson, and he gets to read confidential secret memos every single day?
Yeah, well, what happens is
how long does he last? How long does he last?
He lasts until he becomes too big of an albatross for JD, and that ultimately depends on JD's level of commitment to that movement, what has been arranged as a deal there, what he actually believes in, what he thinks he might be able to accomplish. I think at the end of the day, JD is still a political animal and is probably not going to tolerate an albatross like that forever. But that's an enormously weak link. And a lot of people are like, well, don't attack somebody's child just because Tucker's bad. You don't know that Buckley's bad. I don't even have to attack him. It's the mere fact that he has access to information and his father has access through him that saddles JD with a political problem. Buckley could be a perfect angel and a perfectly model employee, and the mere fact of his relationship to his father and his job with JD Vance creates a political problem for JD the more that Tucker goes bananas. And so that political problem is going to be the thing that is going to eventually weigh in on JD's calculations. The problem is that JD has come out very publicly and very clearly and said, and he's committed himself publicly, which has its own psychological effects down the road, to that he's not going to, he's been very defensive of Buckley, and he's been very protective actually of Tucker, and we don't cancel people, and we don't, we don't break our friendship.
There's also no anti-Semitism in the GOP. He indicated.
Yeah, no anti-Semitism in the GOP, and then he has a Hanukkah party at his mansion and calls it Noel, Christmas Noel or something. And it's like, wait a minute, or Hanukkah Noel. Noel refers specifically to Jesus. So it's like, okay. That's all very subtle.
Could you live with DeSantis or Rubio at the top of the ticket?
I could. I would live, I think, better with DeSantis than with Rubio.
Okay.
I've heard Rubio make I don't know where Rubio is economically right now.
Yeah.
I've heard Rubio back in 19 and 20 making comments that are, aligned with Catholic integralist and distributist thought that I don't agree with. I don't want to see that. He signaled since taking the office he's in right now, and he seems to be doing a splendid job, by the way. I'm not putting down the work he's done as Secretary of State. He signaled very strongly in pro-Catholic ways that on their own are a little weird for the State Department, but fine. It's not that big of a deal for the State Department to be taking, this very kind of explicit stance for a particular denomination. Is a little strange, but it's not the end of the world. But given the color of his previous integralist, I mean, he gave a speech in 2019 where he literally called for integralist style economics as kind of the solution to our economic problems pre-2020.
Weird.
But the question becomes, 2020 was a real game changer for a lot of people. I don't know where he is now.
Yeah.
I would like to see him challenged on some of that and see where he is. And if he's kind of gotten over that or realized that is the fuel of this monstrosity, or a part of this monstrosity that's threatening Trump's administration and his agendas, which Rubio seems to be working clearly in favor of, then maybe he's had, a clear change of heart, and then I could be a lot more comfortable with him. But I'd like to see him asked about it. I'd like to see that.
Do you find it odd that a Marxist like Axelrod, who is a Jew, visits the Pope, and then the Pope goes full Che Guevara on Trump a couple of minutes later?
I don't find it odd at all. I find it I find it very clarifying, as a matter of fact.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, why would Axelrod visit the Pope and then have the Pope come out spewing whatever he was spewing against the administration and the situation? It seems to be the fact that Axelrod is visiting the Pope alone makes it awkward.
That is awkward for the Pope in particular. But the fact of the matter is that he knows his business. He knows the game is going to be, the game right now on the domestic front is to split MAGA. The biggest tool that I'm seeing used there is actually rank and file Catholics that they're trying to agitate.
That's why I was saying
I was going to ask about that. Kerry preaching,
so if
some of these others that are suddenly.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a whole topic. But if you can get the Pope to come out, he's already signaled an anti-war kind of basically untenable position.
This Iran war, not Ukraine and Russia. He's specifically against certain wars.
Correct. And it's been tense as it is. And then for him to then come out the way that he did right after he meets with Axelrod feels very much like Axelrod kind of primed him or told him or suggested to him, or maybe it was collaborative, that if you really want to basically run a wedge on MAGA and Trump, do this, and it's going to make a lot of Catholics touchy. A lot of Catholics are going to get, inflamed, and a lot of Catholics are going to take your side. You're the Pope, over Trump's side, and then maybe we can, see some political changes happening. So I feel like rank and file Catholics are being manipulated. I've even written about this a little bit. This is a little in the weeds, but this explains kind of what I think Kerry Bowler and so on are doing. So Herbert Marcuse is this arch neo-Marxist. He's the father of the New Left. He's in the 1960s, and he's writing in the 60s saying the capitalism has worked. He actually says, advanced capitalism, he says, delivers the goods. He actually said those words, it delivers the goods. And what the result of that, he says, is that the working class has become stabilized. And as a stabilized working class, he says, has become conservative and even counter-revolutionary. So they're not, he says, the basis of the revolution. So what he says is we have to abandon the idea that the working class in our present time is the basis for revolution. They don't have the vital need for change that spurs revolution. So we have to find, he says exactly these words, we need to find a new working class. And the new working class, he says, will be found in the ghetto populations. And he goes on to name also feminists, sexual minorities, racial minorities as ghettoized by a kind of straight white American male hegemony, cultural hegemony in society. Okay, so those ghettoized populations become the intersectional coalition later. So this model, what I bring all that up is this model is that you look for, if you're looking for active political strategy that can cause a real shakeup, is what you want to find are the largest disgruntled minority populations in your target audience, your target coalition, and agitate them. Well, Catholics are that. They're the largest. When you look at the conservative Catholics, they are frustrated by their liberal brethren. And at the same time, they are not particularly happy with the last couple of popes, or maybe all the way back to Vatican II. So they're frustrated there. And then there's a deep-seated, I grew up Catholic and experienced this personally myself growing up. There's a deep-seated feeling of being religiously second-class Christians, or even slightly second-class Americans, somewhat.
Now you know how the Jews feel.
Well, among Catholics. And what I'm saying is that means that they're a sizable minority among religious conservatives who feel put upon, frustrated by, for a number of reasons, who can be agitated by the means related to those reasons, by effectively the mass line. What's making you mad, Catholic? Okay, let's formulate that. Here's an explanation for why that is. It's Protestants hate Catholics, and because they love Jews, so therefore they hate you, or whatever it happens to be. And you can inflame this body. So I feel like they are the next. It was like, first it was the feminists, it was the women, then it was the racial minorities, then it was the sexual minorities. They tried it with the immigrants. It didn't really take off. And now Catholics are the new reservoir of societal angst. And because their target is the conservative movement particularly, or the Republican Party particularly, they can focus in on those conservative Catholics who are frustrated with their experience and agitate them into what's happening now. And I think that's part of it.
I agree.
The other part is that I think a lot of these guys are actually schismatics. I think they're near sedevacanists. They don't want to admit that they think that the Pope is illegitimate and has been since Vatican II, but they don't have the numbers to do anything about it. They know they're going to get disciplined or kicked out if they open their mouths too wide about it. So how do you fix that? You get more numbers. How do you get more numbers? Recruit them from shaky 20-year-old Protestants who aren't sure about their faith, and you hit them with the arguments about how old and strong the church is and how it's ready to put up a Deus Vult mighty fight back against the Marxists and the woke and the Jews. And you shake these 20-year-olds who maybe don't have the best theological foundation, or you take these kind of, generic agnostic-ish or atheist-ish Americans, and you say everything's going wrong because you don't have a solid tradition that goes back 20 centuries. Get with us. We go all the way back to the Rock of Peter, and come with us. And you recruit your mass in order not just to disrupt the conservative movement in MAGA or whatever, but also to get enough people to be able to challenge the church on Vatican II. So I think that there's
aren't you making an argument for Marco Rubio as a Latino Catholic to overcome this?
I mean, he is a total possibility, but it depends strongly on where he stands on those economics before I can get behind it.
All right.
Well, Ted Cruz as well. I mean, Latino Catholic who is against that.
No. He's an evangelical. He's not a Catholic.
Right. Oh, he's evangelical.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. All right. Well, I think Fuentes is a Catholic.
Who?
Nick Fuentes makes a big deal about being Catholic.
Oh, that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Nick Fuentes makes he's one of these people that I would argue falls into that near sedevacanist camp. Like, he's a Catholic and very bold and strident in his Catholicism, but his Catholicism doesn't match any Catholicism since the 1960s. This is why I've started to call these people what they are, schismatics. And like I said, I think the primary operation is against Trump and MAGA, and that they need to do this, but there's a giant operation against the Protestant coalition, the Protestant backbone of the conservative movement and Republican Party. That's under attack. But I still think that these schismatics want to get the numbers through this recruitment drive to be able to challenge the Vatican itself, unless Pope Bob is pulling off Leo, pulling a far more savvy plan and playing both sides while pretending not to have anything to do with these guys.
Well, is the puppet master Barack Obama himself? I mean, sending his underling Axelrod to talk to Pope Bob. I mean, is he running a shadow government across the street from the White House?
I mean, probably, or to the best of his ability to do so. That's what communists do, to the best of their ability to do so. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that Barack Obama is communist aligned at this point. So probably to the best of his ability to do so. I mean, a lot of people on the conservative side want to say that Barack is not that smart, but it would be foolish to underestimate him,
Of
Well, his
course.
people
in this
are.
regard.
Of
I mean,
course.
maybe he isn't but he has people with him that are quite smart. who have
Yeah,
been
like
around for
Kamala Harris is not smart.
Agree.
But
That's
Susan Rice might be very smart.
correct,
James.
but
Yeah.
but Barack Obama, I think it would be foolish to underestimate. But I go back again for the hopeful side of the story to Trump is smarter than you is the and Trump is constantly obviously underestimated. You know,
Yeah,
he comes out
yeah.
sounding kind of like a buffoon, making
Right.
stupid memes. Oh, I thought I was a doctor.
Right.
For the Red Cross.
Will we see a free Cuba in the next 3 years?
You know, I was hoping we already would,
Yeah.
because Trump, you know, said maybe we're going to do. What did he say? How did he phrase it? We didn't call it a very peaceful takeover or something, but he called it something to that effect. Very quiet, very gentle, or something. I don't know. Happy. I don't know. So I thought there might already have been a move there, but the answer, in my opinion, is probably yes. Actually, I don't think that a communist Cuba, especially given the other challenges that its kind of backers and sponsors are facing, I don't think a communist Cuba is long for this world. Just to be clear, I thought it was such a realistic possibility that I've always kind of had in the back of my head that should Cuba become free of communism, one must celebrate by drinking Cubas Libre. And
Mhm.
so, or Cuba Libres, I guess. I don't know how you would do the plural on
Multiples.
that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I already bought the rum is my point.
Oh,
So,
you're way ahead of the curve then. You know,
yeah,
I
so I've
just
got
want
the
to give a
bottle of rum
plug.
waiting for.
I just want to give a plug out to a new film that's coming out called Revolution's Daughter. It's a documentary about the daughter of Fidel Castro denouncing the revolution. Just been released. I don't know what platform it might be on, but keep your eyes open for it.
versus his spiritual daughter, which would be Karen Bass.
His spiritual daughter, yes, Karen Bass, who's running here against the Marxist on the left and a populist, I guess, and Spencer Pratt on the right.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming. I mean, I've definitely wanted to. We talk about your ideas all the time and float them around, and I really do appreciate you hanging out. I'm going to be going through some super chats right now. I don't know if that's something you're interested in hanging out and doing or not, but I always want to give an option to take off or hang out or whatever you'd like to do. But
I am probably going to pop out before the super chat. Sorry to all you guys that might have wanted to talk to me. I just got back from a pretty intense travel, and I'm going to go try to get a little bit done. I lost most of my day today to an unexpected issue that came up through the afternoon, so I've got to get a few things done. So, with your blessing, I think I will pop out.
James, thank
Well,
you.
thank
That was
you.
great, man. That
Thank
was
you so
freaking
much.
great.
Yeah,
You got to come back, James. You got to come back.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Let's
do
do
All
it,
right.
bro.
all right. Thanks so much, man.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Well, cool. I definitely wanted to get him on to talk about all these ideas. Like I said, he has been at the forefront of a lot of what we discuss and academically writing it out. People check him out. New Discourses is what he does. He's on X as Conceptual James, which is actually a joke because he comes out of the grievance studies, where one of his grievance studies was the conceptual penis. So he's calling himself essentially a dickhead as a joke. So it's just an interesting factor there. But wanted to get some of these super chats here, and Grandpama 7636 is a new member. Thank you so much. And we've got Anthony Madison coming in from Australia, of course, saying it's Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault, which we definitely know. Ort Cloud, though, is not going to let him get away with it. He's saying, hell no, it's Carney's fault.
From the British side, yeah, over there.
Or Canadian, I even
Oh,
think.
Canadian, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Possible. James Bundy gifted 5 America's Untold Stories membership, which we definitely do appreciate very much. And we have Pam, who is a really wonderful, loyal watcher, and most importantly, likes my thumbnails. So that makes Pam automatically very brilliant. Thank you, Pam. Patriot Biker 999, another great Tuesday live stream. Thanks, guys.
Did
He's
you
got-
did you see this guy Saeed in Minnesota, by the way, who was arrested for about $11 million in Medicaid fraud? He was a Somali, and they caught him. He posted $150,000 bail, basically 15 grand. They refused to take away his passport, and he fled back to Somalia. This is under the Minnesota liberal administration. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I wish Omar would join him soon, but of course that'll never happen. Over on Rumble, we got a rant from King of Biltong, who's offering his meats for sale. Premium biltong from Biltong USA, high protein, keto friendly, no additives, U.S. source beef, authentic South African flavor. Get some now at biltongusa.com. Use code AUS to save 10%. But very importantly, we got Beavis Wallace coming in hot with $100. Thank you very much, Beavis. So generous. Wow, great guest and awesome show. Thank you, Eric and Mark. Very pivotal show. I thought I was losing my mind about the state of our country. At long last, AUS has connected the dots to the Marxist takeover of the USA.
Well, I've been discussing it for quite a while, but it's good to have somebody back you up on it who's smarter than us. Thanks for the donation, Beavis. Fantastic.
Definitely.
Now, did you hear about the citizenship requirement? They're waiting for this executive order for banking by the Secretary of the Treasury. This is coming down this week. They're expecting Trump to sign an executive order that you have to be a citizen to utilize American banking. I did not see this coming. This is another great, bold move by the Trump administration.
Citizen or what, a green card?
No. Citizen. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to box out a lot of people.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure. I don't know if it will fly, but
It's an executive order, so we'll see.
Well, I understand.
That's as far as it'll fly.
Okay, well, here's the normal course of things.
Right.
Executive orders, court hits it 2 days later, and then we fight it out and see how
I'm
it
just
goes.
announcing the executive order, huh? I'm not here to debate the nuance of the thing at this time. By the way, I'm also predicting that Orban in Hungary will be indicted and arrested fairly shortly. So look at it that way. And as Eric pointed out,
endorsement didn't help him too much.
No, apparently not. Apparently not. They put a lot of weight into that takedown.
Yeah. Ort Cloud, the third rock from the sun is truly nuts. Can anyone save it?
I don't know, but maybe the clone of Zuckerberg might be able to save it. Apparently, he announced he's creating an AI clone of himself. I don't know if you saw this, Eric, but apparently we're going to now have to live with multiple Zuckerbergs.
We have to live with multiple Zuckerbergs, and then Sam Altman, even before this, was doing the Ted Williams route, and he plans to be beheaded before he dies and upload himself into the consciousness.
What?
Yeah. No, they're normal, Mark. They're perfectly normal people, the Silicon Valley folks. They're absolutely normal. Hey, Sean Lucan is a new member. He gives memberships, but he's a new member. Something weird because he also gifted 10 memberships. So thank you for becoming a member again and gifting memberships, Sean.
Did you hear about the preemptive pardons by Trump? That he's talking about preemptively pardoning everyone around him, Eric? This broke yesterday in the morning. I don't know if you saw that, but Trump is now putting together a list of people to preemptively pardon in his administration.
Well, that's been talked about forever. In his first term, everybody said he was preemptively going to pardon everybody. He actually did not. And then Biden wound up doing the blanket pardons. So I don't know. I mean, it would make a certain amount of sense to have a list for quick pardons if it needed to come to that. But
I think he's doing it early so they don't jump ship. I think he's doing it now, not for the outsiders, but for the calming down of the insiders.
It can make sense. Stay the course. I got you.
Stay the course. Yeah. Because they're claiming they're going to go after every single person who's around him.
Well, they will. I mean, that's a given. William Radcliffe, Trump said he has all the info. I think he's slowly revealing it all for the midterms, and Swalwell is just one of the pieces. It could be, but
he must have called Joel Gilbert, who was working locally.
Right. And I kind of feel like the Democratic Party themselves said,
Yeah.
you know what? You're just not doing it for us anymore. Eric.
Well, no, that was
Gotta
at the last minute. They held on as long as they could, you know.
Sure. Scott Bimbo, great discussion with James. NASCAR is my only reply from emailing show.
That's funny.
Reply
That's
was,
funny.
thanks for contacting NASCAR. Then, okay.
What Scott is talking about, what we're requesting from all of you out there, is to email this episode to random email addresses that you may have, just to break out of the stranglehold of the algorithm, not for any political feedback. Keep in mind, this is what Scott has sent it to some of the strangest people in his email list, and we recommend that you do that too. It's the easiest fat ass big thing you could possibly do, which would help us, other than subscribing and sending us money, to simply email the episode to random institutions and random people that you vaguely know. This may help us.
And by the way, one more request. If you are a random person who received an email
that would
and
be
you
great.
are here watching,
that's great.
Please comment below. Please tell us
if it worked.
I would love to. How did you hear of us? And you know what? If you've discovered the show at all, if you're new to the show at all, please let us know. Please let us know in the comments. We are fighting the algorithm. We're fighting a lot of different fronts and creators attacking each other right now. YouTube world's rough. The money is really small, and a lot of the hysteria comes out of that, where it's like ad money's down, sponsorships are down, so everybody starts attacking each other to get drama. But we want to hear from you, anybody and everybody. How did you find us? Are you new?
I want to hear from the Irish who are in the streets of Ireland protesting and toppling the Irish regime, Marxist government. That's far interesting to me. There was a guy, one of the truckers, Eric, who on the back of a truck last night, this must have been 3 nights ago, the video, gave a speech that seemed to be right out of Braveheart. I mean, it was so inspiring to this group of about 50, protesters who are outside the trucks. And they've had it, the Irish, Eric. They have had it.
Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them.
Well, I mean,
using the trucks as weapons, shutting down the buses, using motorized stuff as weaponry is just brilliant. That's why they went after the Canadians.
But by the way, did you see the? I think it was the Irish Secretary of Defense or the equivalent.
Yeah.
That crazy. That's this woman, and it's like
it looked like she was at Coachella on ecstasy.
Yeah, it's like, I can. I can see it's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah.
Let me see. Illustrator 8 Life or Be Life. I don't know. I can't read that. Illustrate Life. There we go. Does the Vatican have a stake in this plan? They're building mosques in Georgetown and the Vatican and are promoting Sharia law. I don't know what's going on.
No, I don't think so. I think this guy's a Marxist pope, and he's tied into Obama out of Chicago, as Eric pointed out. This has nothing to do with these broad conspiracy theories. This mutt is tied into the Obama shadow government and wants to take down Trump, even though his brother apparently is a huge Trump supporter.
Yeah,
that's awkward. That's an awkward Easter moment.
That's true. Lisa D, thanks so much for the show, guys. Well, thank you, Lisa. And we definitely appreciate that. And again, those who want to follow and support us, we are going to be headed over now to Locals. And you know what? You can become a Locals member for free. Take a look around, see what's going on there. If you like it, you can support us yearly. We deeply appreciate it. And that gives you benefits too, because you're able to post, you're able to interact with the chat, interact with different comments. We put up special material for people who are paid supporters. However, there's a lot there, whether you're a paying supporter or not. We don't do that whole thing of you go visit the Locals and it's paid supporters only, paid supporters only. Every single post is all paid.
Is that what
and-
they do that?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people. It's like a totally locked up paywall. It's like, well, okay, well,
Oh, that's ridiculous.
that's not cool.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
you know, like this show right now, whether you're a paid supporter or not, you can go and watch the entire show, no ads, and then see the bit we have afterwards and the little bit of an after.
We're also going to discuss the latest missing scientist over there that I have some information about, and I'm not going to talk to you here, but I'm going to talk to you people over there. This is the 10th missing scientist we'll discuss over there.
All right. So on that note, everybody, thank you so much, and we will see you hopefully momentarily.